Welcome to Own Your Essence, the podcast where healing meets empowerment. We're your host
Lee Walzak.
and April DeMille, two psychic mediums and a life coach specializing in grief, trauma, and toxic relationship recovery. This is a space for deep conversations, powerful transformations, and real, raw healing.
Each week, we'll explore topics ranging from the metaphysical to emotional grief, addiction, mental health, spiritual wellness, and self discovery. Through interviews and personal insights, we aim to spread awareness, foster connection, and support you. You're in the right place if you're ready to set boundaries, reclaim your confidence, and step into your true power. Let's own your essence together.
Podcast disclaimer. The content of this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as medical, psychological, or legal advice. If you need medical or mental health support, please contact a qualified healthcare provider. This podcast also contains explicit language and discussions on sensitive topics, including but not limited to abuse, trauma, addiction, and mental health struggles. Listener discretion is advised, as some content may be triggering or not suitable for younger audiences. By continuing to listen, you acknowledge and accept these terms. And as always, thank you for tuning in. Hey guys, welcome to Own Your Essence podcast. We are your host,
Lee Walzak.
and April DeMille. And this is so cool because this is a very cool new project that Lee and I have decided to co-create together. And so here we are as total fucking newbies, not knowing what we are doing, but we're just going to roll with it. So today we have a special guest speaker, and we will have guest speakers on a regular basis moving forward. But today we get to introduce one of our friends and somebody that's a part of our community. She's a really special lady. So Lee, if you want to go ahead and talk about her a little bit.
Of course. Today it's our pleasure to introduce Beck Nelson, who is a licensed therapist, spiritual mentor, and best-selling slash award-winning author who helps individuals and couples break free from toxic cycles, overcome self-sabotage, and reclaim their personal power. She is the creator of Beckology and host of Intuition Unleashed, a revolution in personal liberation.
Nice. She's a powerful lady. So let's give a nice welcome to our friend, Beck Nelson. She will be right here. Okay, let's see. Let's get her on here. There she is. Hey, lady. Can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, sorry about all these flips and flops that we're going through. It's been fun, but we have just read your introduction. So I'm excited to get into this with you. I've had the chance of getting to sit down with you before, but Lee has not. And he's actually really excited to get to know you some better.
Oh,
Yeah.
we don't I'm sure we've crossed paths
Yeah.
virtually, but we have not had an opportunity. I gotta change this so I can see both of you. Hide self view.
Oh, now we can't hear you. Where'd you go? There you okay.
Oh, I can hear.
Yeah, now I can hear you. I don't know what's happening.
Hey.
So, Beck, I know that we talked about you being a therapist. I had a question for you, if you don't mind me kind of kicking things off, but can you tell me kind of I think you do more couples therapy, isn't that right?
No, I do a mix.
You do. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So what was it that kind of led you into doing, I guess, expanding into couples therapy? Was there something that just kind of fit with you and you were like, oh, I think I want to try this? Was there any?
To become a licensed therapist, there's really a couple paths that you can take. I guess in my state, so I'll speak specifically to my state, which is Rhode Island. I think it's similar in many states. You can become a licensed independent social worker, clinical social worker. You can become a licensed mental health provider, or the track that I took was a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Okay.
So when I was getting licensed at the time, I went to the University of Rhode Island, which was the only place in this area that was teaching marriage and family therapists. Most people are going to the Rhode Island College School of Social Work, which at the time probably was graduating 200 people per year or something like that. So they were putting out a lot, and our program had like 6. And I really liked the program at the University of Rhode Island. It's where I got my undergraduate degree. So because it was specifically a marriage and family therapy degree, we did a lot more focus on couples work. And there was a clinic at the University of Rhode Island where I was training, where we did a lot of couples work with the community. So I think it really exposed me to that. Plus, I really enjoy the work, couples work.
Yeah. I would imagine, so I know that I get to work with people one-on-one individually, but I can't imagine what it would be like trying to be the referee between two. So,
some people really try to wing it, and it's a little irresponsible, I think, to wing it.
yeah.
Because is it okay to like swear in here, you guys?
Yeah, girl, who are you talking to?
I don't know what your thing is, right?
I cuss up a storm, so you're good.
I think that a lot of people think that when they come to couples therapy, that someone's going to tell their spouse what an asshole they are, or how wrong they are.
Right.
And that's obviously not what I do at all. But I think people are just like, tell him how wrong he is. And the other guy's like, so who wants to come to a therapy session when that's what's going to happen? But that's not what happens at all.
Right. Because then they feel like it's like triangulation. That's like, oh yeah, well, let's get you under the magnifying glass here. So
yeah, I'm not here to, actually what I tell them is I'm not here to figure out who the big asshole is.
Right.
That's not my job.
Right. Because everybody has their own path and the way they do things and the way they learn and how they show up for themselves and in the relationship and the dynamic. So it's everybody deserves support for that.
What I tell them is like, I think that what happens is you have your stuff and then he or she, whatever, have their stuff. And then my job is to figure out why it's not meeting in the middle,
right?
Where the clash is and how to make that work.
Yeah. Like where's the disconnect happening in communication, or where are these misunderstandings just falling apart? Yeah. Yep. That makes sense.
I mean, I enjoy doing both, but I do have a special place in my heart for couples therapy. I really enjoy it.
Has there ever been like a time that you like sat with a couple, or I don't know, like you had this massive takeaway after like having breakthroughs with a specific couple and you were like, damn, that just kind of shifted things for you, like on a personal level, but even like on a career level, like it just rocked your world kind of thing?
Well, so many that really need that. One of them I do talk about kind of in my book, because I had an uncle that was deceased that was really trying to let me know that he was around, and not only around, but delivering specific clients to me. And usually it's been Marines.
Okay.
That he feels like really needs the support. And right. And I didn't realize that at the time. I mean, we're going back probably 20 years. And I had a couple in my office. And this was at a point where I was not embracing any kind of gifts, because I'm like, I'm already weird enough. I don't want to be the weird chick. Right?
I totally get that.
So I had this couple in my office, and he started talking about, so my uncle was a Vietnam vet.
Okay.
And he was a Marine, obviously. So my uncle was the little guy, and they would send him into the foxholes with a pistol to see, or shotgun or whatever I don't know, not shotgun, whatever they give him. I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about, to see who's in the holes. Right. Okay. They would send him into the hole. Imagine how terrifying that is.
Yeah.
So that was his job. And I had never met anybody that he had been in a platoon with or anything like that. But this guy started talking about, in the middle of our counseling session, this guy that he was in the Marines with. And I'm like, this is like our first session, and I'm taking some notes and I'm building like a genogram, like a little map of the family. And he starts really talking about essentially my uncle. And I'm like writing and all this. I just remember looking up, like, when it dawned on me that that's what he was doing, that he was talking about my uncle in the middle of a session. And so I knew that at that moment I was like, okay, he is not going to leave me alone. And so this guy's like, this time in the Marines, and this little guy, oh my God, he was hilarious. And he used to make us all die laughing, and he didn't know how to read. And so he'd bring in his mother's letters and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, holy shit. And he said, I can't remember his name, but can't remember his last name, but we called him Danny. Now, that's my uncle. And I was like, I remember looking up, like,
oh my gosh,
was his last name? And I said his last name, and he goes, how did you know that? And I was like, that's my uncle. And he was like, holy
Oh my
shit. Like,
God.
yeah. And okay, now
That's insane.
obviously this guy is like 15 years older than me. Right. And
Yeah.
like I mean, we just kind of knew that,
But
oh,
what are the fucking odds?
yeah,
Like, whoa.
he sent him. And literally he has sent me on so many missions since then, but that is not really related to therapy per se, but it was the first time that,
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, it is, but I mean, he
yeah,
came to you by means of therapy.
right. I
Yeah.
mean, so many other wow moments, but that was certainly a big one. But lots of other ones since then. I don't know if that's
But that leads me to another really great question because I mean, a lot of times in the clinical world, um, where is, I know for you, because you're a magical lady, you have a blend of the clinical and the magical and the spiritual and all the things, but that's not always been the case. I think it is becoming more common and people are more awakening to it these days, but like that's not always the case. Sometimes you don't have a therapist that's quite so open in that way, or it's more clinical as opposed to the blend.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a really good. Lee, do you have anything to ask about that?
Yeah, I would be
Mhm.
curious too, because it sounds like you've been in the mental health field for a while now. You were mentioning, 20 years ago, where obviously this stuff was much less talked about. But I would be curious now how you kind of where you kind of find yourself in both worlds, because kind of like April was saying, there's obviously certain, I'm sure, guardrails and guidelines in place in the mental health field that you kind of have to follow. So I'd imagine that you're not sitting down with clients necessarily. I don't know, you can tell me, but and saying like, oh, your deceased mother is behind you, So I'm
Right.
I'm wondering how you kind of navigate and almost balance being in both those worlds, and do they ever overlap in any kind of sense?
Great question. So I started doing this work before I even got my master's degree. It was 1992. And I had my first job fresh out of college was in a methadone clinic. Can you
Oh,
imagine
yeah.
the
Wow.
learning that I had there? They'd be like, what do
Yeah.
you want? Um, yeah, it was like that. It was hard, like, do you have my dose on hold? Well, it was a tough, yeah. So I graduated from that. I was there for 6 years. I think that when I look back, it's the work that I have always done to be able to blend both of them. I just didn't know that that's what I was doing.
Okay.
Like I would know there were just things that I knew that we now know is one of the clairs that I have a clear knowing, like things just pop into my head. You have one daughter that studies like this, and then this daughter's like this, and they'll be like, how did you know that? And they'll be like, yeah, I don't know. I just did. Like I didn't question it back then, but it just was part of my work. And I think the work that I've done has never changed, but certainly has evolved. And I was going to say I owned, but I still own. My tax ID is Hope Counseling and Mediation Center. And we had on our highest, we had about 8 or 9 therapists working under me that were all doing mental health, and we were taking health insurance. Now 2 years ago I decided that it just wasn't fitting for me anymore, the rules that we were having to follow to be able to stay in business and get paid by health insurance. I don't want to do it anymore, and the people that were working for me, like COVID, as you know, has really changed a lot of things too, and how things work. I don't want to have to keep session notes that, and we were having Blue Cross contact us and say we want April session notes for the past year. And so I have to now share 20 progress notes from the past year. I want to be like, it's none of your freaking business. But it
Right.
is because they're paying for it,
Right.
you know? And so I have to keep these notes. I have to give a diagnosis in order for them to be considered medically necessary and for someone to pay for them. So I have to give people diagnosis, even if they really don't need one, which is a label. So a lot of it didn't fit for me anymore. So I just found that it's the work that I've always been doing, but now I know where some of these things are coming from. So now I can hone in on those skills a bit more.
Sure.
That's really cool that you bring that up because I have a fabulous therapist. Fucking love the guy to death. He's great. And he ran into a similar problem when it came to some of my paperwork for insurance purposes. He was like, April, I have to code it these certain things. And he goes, and it really sucks on my end because these don't apply to you. He goes, honest to God, I've spent time with you and they just don't apply to you. And I'm just like, that does suck because that goes on our record.
Yep.
It's on your permanent medical record. And that's what has to happen. And there's, so I can understand how that would be like, at some point, maybe not fitting with your integrity of like, I don't feel good about this anymore and having to make that decision.
So that, I had been feeling it for a while, probably more since COVID, probably the past 4 or 5 years. What happened during COVID is that for about a year, nobody had a copay. So I don't know who was paying that copay, but what was happening is people were literally like, oh, fuck it, it's not costing me anything. Just put me in for next week. And I'm like, I was seeing like I had so many clients, like I had no lack of clients at all. And I was so busy, but people didn't have the investment in it because they weren't paying anything themselves. So
Right.
they
Okay.
didn't care. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what is happening here? Like people would just come in and just talk about, walking their dog that morning. And I'm like, it
So it
just,
was more like just busy work for them, just to keep themselves busy. It wasn't like they were actually diving in to do the heavy lifting. They were,
some people were. I know
yeah,
there's exceptions to that,
for
but
sure.
when people come in and they're happy to give me their $15 copay,
Right.
I haven't
Yeah.
taken since maybe 2 3 years ago. I personally have not taken on any new clients with insurance. I have the clients that I've been seeing for a long time that I still see right now. My eventual goal is to get rid of health insurance just altogether.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me see, about a year and a half ago, they took away 20 payments for a guy from the year before that. So these are sessions from 2022. And it wasn't my client, it was somebody who was working for me. So Blue Cross was just like, oh, we found out that this guy had other health insurance that you were supposed to bill first. And they literally took like $3,000 out of, I'm like, what the hell? And they just can. And I am still trying to get him back. And it's been a year and a half. And again,
Wow.
these are sessions from 2022. And the
Yeah.
client's like, oh, too bad. I mean, he literally told me to go fuck myself. When I tried to call him, he's like, well, that's your
Oh,
problem. And the insurance company could care less. So
yeah.
it really falls on the provider. And I'm just tired of being that fall guy. Like it just is not in alignment with the work that I'm trying to do.
Yeah. And you know what? I truly believe that like you can drop that weight and you're naturally going to attract the people that are right for you anyway.
That's what I've been trying to do
For
because
real.
people, I mean, I'm still getting phone calls literally every day from insurance companies, from clients being like, do you taking new clients? No, we're
Stop
just
fucking
good.
calling me, assholes.
And to try to get off of I've gotten off of some of the panels that I just like, Aetna, I won't deal with them anymore. But I still get calls. I'm like, well, you're on this list. I have told them, I have emailed them, I have, gone to their house and been like, hello, can you say no? No matter what, I'm still on their panel. But it is very difficult to be. I'm trying to attract those people
Yeah. Yeah.
now.
I love
I think,
that.
oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead. I was good.
Oh, I was going to say, I think it's interesting too, because I know other friends of mine who are in the mental health field who have said the exact same things that you're saying. And I think it's an interesting thing when we find ourselves as someone who really, maybe their soul kind of came here to express in servitude, and to help and to heal. So we're trying to accomplish that on some level and kind of follow that mission and follow what feels good to us. And then we're having to deal with these other things like insurance companies that are treating things like a more transactional sort of dynamic. So I can imagine, I mean, I'm not in the mental health field, but I can imagine it's really a tough balancing act.
Yeah, it probably like sucks the fucking joy right out of you.
What the part that, how do I explain it to people, is that like, imagine having a job, and there were probably 10 years in a row where like Blue Cross didn't give us a raise at all, right?
Oh, wow.
And so they get to decide what I make, first of all,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I make exactly what somebody who just got licensed last week, making the same exact pay,
Okay.
even
Yeah.
though I've been doing it for, do the math, 25 years.
Right.
So there's, what's the incentive besides just my, internally to do better, because I could suck and it wouldn't matter. I'd get the same pay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's rough.
So, if you go to a job, you're going to get every year, you're going to get a raise. Now, I think like Blue Cross gave us like I keep using Blue Cross. It's the biggest payer here, but like $1.34 more an hour or something last year.
Wow,
And
that's fucking groundbreaking.
it's not
I'm just
their raises. There are probably a good 10 years where we didn't get a raise at all. And then they've been giving us slow, like not even standard of living raises. And I got little, somebody who just graduated and they're getting, or just got their license and they're getting the same pay I am.
So the exchange just isn't there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's rough.
I am curious, Beck, to kind of shift for a minute, if that's okay. But you mentioned a lot about transmuting, adversity and life's challenges, and taking that and making it into something more positive. And I was wondering actually if you could expand on that a little bit, because I found that really interesting.
Oh, thank you. I would love to. So I grew up with a very violent alcoholic father who terrorized us. I mean, we were afraid to move because you just never knew. If you grew up an alcoholic, they're chaotic. You just never knew it was going to piss them off. And we would just sit there in terror, like none of us would move, including my mom. We would just, and when they get divorced, we were still dealing, my brother and I still had to deal with them. And I'm like, great, Mom, thanks. Like we have to deal with them. It was terrifying. And yes, I have PTSD from that. When people talk about having PTSD, I'm like, no, try not like knowing if you're going to wake up in the morning, like what, if you're going to be woken up in the middle of the night, smashed in the face, like it was just terrifying. So for a long time, I was stuck in that, that kind of victim mentality and feeling like nobody really got that. Nobody really understood what it was like. And you try to explain it to people and it just sounds so ridiculous that unless you live that, you can't understand it.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
it's like hypervigilance on steroids. And I do know, because I grew up in the same household. So, when I started to do this work, obviously you have to go through your own stuff. And, I processed my own stuff. I did stuff in college, a 12-step group for children of alcoholics and that kind of thing. I did a lot of work on myself, but I didn't really hit the height of it until I think it really hit me when I had a palm reading several years ago. And this woman showed me one of the lines on my hand that she said, "This is a Persephone headline." Have you guys heard of this? No, I want to hear about this. It was
like this wow moment in my life. Now, everybody should have.
Oh, please do tell.
So, do you know who Persephone is in Greek mythology?
Yes, vaguely.
Okay, vaguely. I've looked it up since then, and like, of course, you're going to challenge my memory of this story, but something to the effect of Persephone was the daughter of Ulysses, I think.
That sounds right.
And she was taken into the underworld by Hades and kidnapped essentially and kept in the underworld. So she could not get out in Greek mythology. So apparently what she did was because she couldn't get out, she sort of found a way to make the best of it and still found a way to have a happy life despite all of that. And then she says, you have a Persephone headline, which means that, well, I get chills when I talk this story, which means that you are basically pulled into the depths of hell. And your challenge is how to find a way to make it better within yourself, because your outside isn't going to change. You have to change your inside, and then to be able to show others in turn how to do the same.
Girl, I have to have one of those. Where the fuck is that at?
Right?
I'm like, where is that thing?
I forget where it is.
No, I've got one.
This lady sends you pieces of paper, and then you have to do both of your palms. Right. And then you have to do each of your fingers. I mean, it was fascinating. I would highly recommend it.
Cool. Yeah. You're going to have to send me that information later.
I'm going to have her on my podcast to talk about it, because it was like mind blowing. I just loved it. And it just made so much sense to me. And I'm like, okay, so this is the why.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is sort of the key to life. What I figured out, if you're able to figure out why something happens and how it plays into where you can go with it, then that's where the key to life is. That's how you unlock your happiness.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to decide to be happy instead of every day. And what I also learned is, this is, through a number of experiences, not just from the hand reading, that if you keep asking the universe, why did this happen to me? Then the universe will keep giving you evidence of why it happened to you. Right. because they can only give you what you ask for. And I didn't want to keep having that. I already knew why, right? It just is. So I didn't want to keep bringing that to me. I didn't want to keep giving that answer. I wanted to figure out how to be Persephone.
So then the question changed from why am I doing this into how can I evolve while doing this kind of thing?
Instead of why does this keep happening to me? Because of course you continue to bring those experiences to you. And I'm like, well, don't I deserve better? Like, why don't I deserve more?
Yeah.
And so the universe just shows you it's because you're attracting people that need to be healed and people that want to take advantage of you and people that are chaotic. And I didn't want that anymore. So I had to really learn how to ask a different question. Like, what do I need to know so that I can move on and have a happier life? And then to be able to translate that for other people.
Yeah. And then like, what did you have to understand within yourself in order to break those barriers too?
Yeah. What did I have to heal myself? Yeah.
I'm kind of curious as a follow-up question as well. So you talked about, growing up in a household that was obviously very chaotic and obviously, that imprints on your nervous system, to some degree. So, and I find this kind of pattern, myself included, with people who maybe experience traumatic events, especially very early on, and develop this kind of hypervigilance, and then also who are very hypersensitive to begin with. I find this, so I'm curious to see if you've had this experience or you see this, but I see this kind of pattern of it kind of, those two things kind of compounding each other, where we then kind of grow into adults that are super empathic and have this ability to walk into a room, but then our trauma, or walk into a room and feel the energy, but then our trauma side and our nervous system is like, you need to know exactly how every single person in this room is feeling because I need to know who is unsafe.
Right.
So I'm curious if you've kind of even experienced that for yourself, or if you've seen that, in people that you've helped or worked with. And I would also be curious what you might do or tell somebody who is kind of stuck in that, not just in the mental part of it, but the nervous system. I'm going to say unregulation. I'm trying to stay away from the word dysregulation because that to me feels like there's like a permanent problem. So nervous system unregulation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it got to, so without telling you how old I am, it takes you 50 years to get to this point in your life. You're not going to undo it. However, go back to that word opportunity. Thanks for asking that question. Because I think, all the above. Yes, I bump into clients that have the same issue. And then of course I experience that myself, but every time I experience that, obviously those are triggers. And triggers are an opportunity to figure out where, what needs to be healed. So any trigger that I have like that is an opportunity for me to understand what still needs to be healed.
Yeah. Like what part of you is actually screaming at you right now?
Yeah. And so it's your body's way of letting you know that this needs some more work. It's completely, first of all, I normalize it.
Yeah.
And say, okay, how do you take this opportunity and when you react, you're reacting to that trigger in a way that your body is holding on to that memory of, this is how I responded to it when I was 5, 10. Yeah. I didn't feel safe. So you have to, first of all, catch yourself, allow yourself to process, to push allow those emotions to go through you. So I give myself a minute to feel that. First of all, I hate it when I hear therapists say, well, you just have to find a way to distract yourself. No, you need to figure out a way to feel that so that you can heal it. We always say that. I have to let it, sometimes I picture it as like a darkness or like, see, I'm holding on to this amethyst. Like I just kind of find a way to like breathe and let it pass.
Move through you. Yeah.
Right. So I tell it hello, thank it for what it's doing for me, the opportunity to allow me to have this experience. And then I also say, I am safe now. I'm not 10 years old. Yeah. I'm not going to, I'm going to sleep tonight and I'm not going to be woken up by a crazy alcoholic person. I'm safe. So how do I want to respond to this in a way that I can respond to the place that I've come to today in my life?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so these are kind of like a couple of steps, right? I observe it. Okay. I process it. I thank it for the opportunity instead of being like, oh my gosh. And then I say, how do I want to respond to this in a way that who I am and who I've become and the maturity that I've had now? Because I don't need to respond like a 10-year-old.
No, but you can integrate it into your present version of you.
Yeah, to the point that I've grown since then. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
And I think even if I'm looking at the energetic piece of it, which I often do, but I think as the adult, if we're holding space in that moment, when a trigger comes up, it's like we're holding space for that child version of ourselves, so it's almost like being the adult in some sense that maybe we were hoping would come along at that time. And I think that's a really beautiful thing
Yeah.
and an amazing way we can transmute some of that energy.
We get to be the parent that we needed to save us in those moments,
Right.
in that moment that those triggers come up. And I'm a big advocate on we're not supposed to bypass those triggers and those emotions. That's horseshit. Like that's only going to cause illness and more disruption and more tower moments and more problems when you're trying to hold that shit in. So yeah, I love that.
And also, healing doesn't mean that it's never going to come up for me ever again, because people will
Right.
say, when is this going to stop happening? It may not.
It may not
It may
ever.
not have, it may like happen less frequently. It may not have
Right.
the impact that it used to have on you, but it's always living in there. So honor it and ask it what it's looking for today.
Yeah. Yeah. Freaking love that. And there's nothing that will keep you more grounded and present than what do you need right now? Let's not think about the past or the future. What is it you need right this second?
Mhm. And you certainly can decide to get lost in it and become the victim. You have every right to, and that's what I tell clients. Go ahead and do it. Is
Yeah.
it serving you, and how close is it getting you to where you want to be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that too, though, that you offer that question because it's creating a space where you're saying, like, you have the right to choose. And I'm not telling you that this way is wrong or this way is right. And, within that, there's no judgment. But yeah, let's explore if it actually is serving you or benefiting you in any way in your life. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because there are moments even in like my progress. So like I deal with some, so it's not really autoimmune, but like there's some illnesses that I've been dealing with over the last few years. And, I have my moments where I definitely need to fall into the victim. I'm like, I feel like the victim, I feel attacked, and I still have to give space for those moments. I just do. It happens.
So I'm reading, I don't know if you guys read Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural.
No, it's on my readings list though. I've got it in my Amazon cart.
He says that we actually become addicted to that cycle, that fight or flight cycle.
Mhm.
And so we keep allowing ourselves to go back into it because we like it, right?
Because we
That
like to be
also-
reminded of the discomfort that we used to be in, probably.
And so that really hit me. And I tell other clients, and you should see their face when they're like, oh, ooh, like I'm doing this.
It totally makes sense to me because it's something we know better than the unknown. The discomfort is something I knew and was more familiar with than the unknown territory I'm moving into. So it makes sense to me that I would want to revisit that and, oh, this is the only home I know, right? This is what I know.
But of course, as clients that are not as open to that, they're like, you think I want this? I'm like,
I mean, clearly you do. You're going
I
back
think
to
you're
it.
comfortable with it.
Right. There you go. That's
So
what
the
it is.
clients that are best for me are people that are going to just be like, oh, open to that,
Right. Yeah.
to hearing that.
Yeah.
So I love all that. I wanted to shift gears for a second too, because I want to be able to talk about your book. You have a book.
Yeah.
Your
Let's
newest
talk
author.
about that.
In your book is called Cut the Shit, which I like. Um, I actually had a question on the title too. I was curious if you knew all along that you wanted a really bold title like that, because I do. I find it pretty bold to put shit in a title,
Pretty awesome.
in a good way. So I'm curious if you kind of always knew that, like from the beginning of the writing process, that you're like, yeah, I'm going to use something that's bold, and or if that kind of came along after the fact.
It definitely came along after the fact. The book coach that I was working with kind of advised against it, although she liked it. It kind of closes a couple doors because there's local bookstores who don't want to put it on their shelf because of that. I've definitely bumped into that, and that's a risk. And even the book coach was like, "You might want to buy those stickers. Just get a little sticker over the eye." And I was like, and when I saw mock-ups of the cover with the little asterisks instead of the eye, and I'm like, it just didn't have the same energy to me. It felt muted.
Yeah, it feels like they're watering down the version of you that really needed to come through. And that seems so not fair.
Exactly. Yeah. That just is kind of I'm a very assertive person. It just felt like a very assertive title. Maybe a bit aggressive. And I wanted it to slap somebody in the face. I wanted them to either
That's the whole point.
This is offensive. Okay, then that's not your book. Or like, I got to read it because of that title, which I've gotten too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I do think it draws people in for sure. You see cut the shit and you're gonna pause and like you said, either have a reaction where, maybe you're feeling a little triggered and you're like, oh, I don't like that word. Or you're gonna, pause and be like, how interesting. I wonder what that is about. So either way, you are getting that pause.
Right.
I'd be the person that would be like, oh, that is the book that's going in my Amazon cart.
Yeah.
I need that book.
Please. I hope people hear that and get it. Yeah, for sure.
I'm curious too, if you can tell us a little more about the book and the contents.
Totally. We got to hear that.
I was working with a coach at the time, Michelle Barr, who was one of my first coaches, and she kind of started opening up a lot of doors for me, helping me to learn a lot of the things that I've described to you today. And to understand my uncle who is poking through and that he didn't need to take over my life, etc., which he sometimes does. What I found is that I was able to listen to my inner voice a little bit more, or those voices in my head that would say, oh, maybe you should do this, or have you checked that, or, that our intuition essentially. And I wasn't acknowledging it as that before. And again, I just thought it was me. That's what you always think right in the beginning. So what I knew I wanted to write a book, and I do have a second or third one up there. And I'd always say to my clients, oh, the book that I'm writing in my head, ha, ha, ha. What I noticed when I was working with my clients is that there were certain patterns that I was starting to put in categories that have now become the rules of my book. So I was working with this mentor, and I'm like, I'm trying to figure out what's the book, what's it going to be about. And one day I was sitting with one of my clients and they left, and I'm like, oh, that's the such and such. And I heard in my head, when are you going to start writing these down? And I just got chill when I said that. And I knew that I knew enough about intuition and spirit at that point to say, okay, I really need to write this down.
Yeah.
So I sat down and started writing them out, all these things. And they ended up being, at first it was like 12. And then I added 2 more as I went along. And every time I would have another client, I'm like, yep, these are falling into certain categories. So I felt like that book was there all along. It was I just needed to write it down, and I wasn't writing it down.
You just needed to have the organization and the framework in place to bring it to life.
That is something that I need to go back and remember, because there's other things that float around in my head, and I really just need to write them down.
Yeah.
To
absolutely.
begin to organize it.
Yeah.
What I knew from graduate school that I write about in the book is that this stuck with me, right? The clients that come to you most of the time come to you because their intended solutions actually made their problems worse. That really stuck with me. So that was sort of that's the basis of the work that I do. Like, what are you doing that you think is solving your problem, even if it's, unhealthy? And how is it actually making your problem worse? And let's unravel that. So the biggest thing is blaming other people for your problems, or trying to make other people change to make you happy. And that's the basis of all of those rules.
Okay. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
I like that.
Did you find that because I've never written a book, but I know people who are authors, and this seems to come up sometimes. Did you find that you had to kind of meet certain parts of yourself that actually came up during the writing process? Sometimes like shadow pieces or different patterns that we have, that organically come up when we do a creative process like that.
Oh, do you know how many of those were me?
Oh, yeah.
Because I have to, and even now, in sitting with my husband, sometimes I'll be like, that's, rule number 4. But I have to keep the inventory of my own actions too, and be like,
Yeah.
nope, you're doing this one right now.
And if you were going to give, so I'm also an author, like I'm not published yet, but I'm writing books. If you were going to give me some advice or any other author, what would it be? If they were wanting to write a book?
I think the thing that I remember the most is I didn't want my book to be a memoir. Someone said to me early in the process, don't make your first book a memoir because no one gives a shit about your story. I was like, wow, that's pretty harsh, right? But I guess why would you want to read a story about somebody else is kind of what they were saying, unless that's somebody that you've already had some experiences with.
Right.
So don't make your first book a memoir.
Okay.
That was the advice that I was given to me. And I really didn't want to tell my story. I didn't want it to feel like I was like, poor me, I had this horrible experience. I didn't want it to be like that. And the book coach that I was working with, who is from Transcendent Publishing, I would highly recommend.
Oh, Shanda. Thank you.
Oh,
yeah.
And she had said to me, I gotta refocus my thoughts. So you have to tell some of your story in the beginning because you want people to know that you know what you're talking about and to relate to you. So it was this balance between, I don't want it to be a memoir, I don't want to tell my story, but I also have to tell enough of it for people to know, hey, that's the person I need to work with because she gets me.
Yeah. Like she's real, she's relatable, and she seems pretty authentic in her story.
And she's speaking from experience, not just professionally, but personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I like that.
And like an outline, again, writing it down.
Yeah.
And an outline really helped keep things on track and kept my ADD brain organized.
Girl, I've got that problem.
Same. All in the same boat.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about channelers or spiritualists. Like when we're walking between worlds, it's really hard to not be like, oh, squirrel, like what the fuck? Like it happens.
So the notes help. The notes keep you on track.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So also your book, can you tell us a little bit about what happened when you took your book? I know you took your book to a fun event. Do you want to talk about that?
I love talking about that because it was amazing.
Yeah, tell us that story.
Matt Rife just bought a house in my state in Rhode Island, and nobody lives in my state. Oh, actually, Taylor Swift does have a house here, but she doesn't live here. It's one of her summer homes in Westerly.
Okay.
So Matt Rife actually purchased a home, and my understanding is that he lives here full time now because he likes the Boston comedy scene. So we're about 50 miles from Boston. He likes the local scene in Rhode Island, and I think the land was a better deal for him here.
Okay.
So he has this like 10-acre horse farm here, or whatever. So he has started doing a lot of local shows at a very small venue, like 250 seats, called the Comedy Connection, which is in East Providence. And I didn't know this at the time. This was last April, so it's almost been a year. So you get a notification when you're on the Comedy Connections text list, and they come up and they're like, pre-sale for just the people on our texting list for these. He was doing 4 shows. And like I said, there's only 250 seats there. So he was doing 4 shows, and he called it crowd work.
Okay.
And so it was just going to be him coming in. And he said this when he first came on, like, I don't have a set. I just want to ask some questions. And, he said, if this sucks, it's your fault, is what he told me.
That's because the audience is lame.
Right. So he did 4 shows, and I don't even know how I got to see. They were like $50 or something ridiculously cheap. And just the week before, he had been at Mohegan Sun, which is nearby, at over like $200 a ticket or something ridiculous. So I was lucky enough to snag a couple of tickets because all 4 shows sold out in a New York minute. And when people go to the Comedy Connection, which is one of our favorites, sometimes they will do like a meet and greet afterwards. So I'm like, imagine this, I'm going to take my book and see if he'll do a thing with me, and I'll be like, but I was like, nah, I'm gonna wing it. So I brought the book, and the woman next to me was like, oh, what's that? And I, of course, told her the whole story. So when he comes on, the first thing they tell us is that we have to put our phones away and we can't do any video. And I'm like, all right, that's not gonna work. So the first thing he asks is he tells us that he's doing crowd work, and he says, my question is, does anybody here have a dream that they want to share? So the woman next to me takes my arm and pushes it up in the air.
Oh, that's awesome.
Since then, I didn't even know who this lady was. Since then, she has messaged me and she was like, I was the woman next to you, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, that is so cool. Good for her.
So I was mortified, of course. So, and what I didn't realize is, because none of us had cameras, that his staff was taping the interaction. Okay. So he's like, I tell him my dream is that I, want to get away from using health insurance. I'm a therapist. I want to be able to do this work, get away from the health insurance, blah, blah, blah. And I'm also a psychic medium. Now, I didn't know at the time that his grandfather died, and he was kind of very intrigued by that. I've since found that out. But he's like, oh, you have a book for me? Like, can I see it? And literally, if you see it now, I know that it was now taped. I didn't know that. So I bring up my book, and of course now I have a screenshot, but anyway, I'll get to that. So we had this whole interaction. He was very intrigued. He was more interested in the medium piece and was asking a lot of questions about that. Like, can you tap into my grandfather? And I had literally had a martini or two at that point. And I was like, this is really not the time and place for this. I was saying to him, and everybody around there was very judgy. And it was a fairly lengthy interaction. And I was like, oh, I bet everybody around here is like, leave this, like, shut up, lady. But honestly, he was driving it. It went on for a while. So he moved on to somebody else, and I'm like, okay, he's got my book. I don't know where that's going to go. And then at the end, he took off. So there was no meet and greet. I was like, oh. Thankfully I had inscribed the book in the inside for him, and I put my card in there. And this was last April. So that was the last I heard of it. And I was like, well, that was really fun. So he held it up in front of 250 people that were there that night. That were not there to hear about that. So this was April. In August, one of my clients messaged me and said, is it now going to cost me more money to see you? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, and she sends me the TikTok link, and I was not on TikTok at the time, but of course I had to sign up for it. And it was the entire interaction that we had that I didn't realize was taped. And at that point, there was like 1,700 views at that moment, but it went like, it blew up. Mm-hmm. So it was 8 minutes long. I was amazed, like, holy shit. So, and my book started really selling that month. I mean, they've,
I bet
since, but I was like, wow. And I did have people message me that I've never met before. Some people asked for reading, did sign up for some readings. It did blow up. So I was like, wow, this is like, when you want something, put it out into the universe and just like, let spirit take over, because you do not know where it's going to go.
Yeah. Like
what I got was way more than what I had asked for.
Yeah. Like, let the magic happen. And also we can show that clip. Do you want to?
Oh yeah. Some people were like, I can't just believe I just watched an 8-minute TikTok.
Oh, we're going to watch an 8-minute TikTok. Also, one question I have before we get into that TikTok though is, for any of our listeners, do you do remote view, like remote sessions? If somebody's like, hey, she's the chick for me, I want to go to this therapist.
I absolutely do. Yes.
Cool. That's what I wanted to hear.
What is horrible is you cannot read all the other comments, because people are really cruel. Like, oh, like if you're a therapist that does mediumship reading, get another therapist. Oh, I had to like stop reading them. So I'm like, I didn't ask to read this guy, you guys.
Never read the comments. Yeah.
Oh,
never.
Yeah. Fuck the trolls. Can you guys see this?
I can see it.
Okay, yeah. Cool. This is the link that you had, Beck. I'm just going to throw into this.
Oh, can we not hear it because we're using the audio on Zoom?
I don't know. Should I stop it? Can you not hear any of it?
No, I don't think it's going to let you. We can talk about it for another minute and then figure out a way to like.
That's okay. Let me see if we can get him holding up the book. Let's see. Oh, there she is. Okay. I want to see. You can see her.
He holds it up before that. Like when I come in.
Oh, he does. So I need to go back. Okay. Let me go back a little bit.
I've taken a few screenshots and captured it.
Let's see if he gets it here. Dang it. I missed it again. Okay.
Yeah, he holds it up right before that.
Like where?
He was very gentle on me. He was really trying to bust my balls, but
Well,
I
dang, I was hoping we could share that whole clip, but I guess, yeah, because we're in headphones and all the things, it's probably not gonna.
we can maybe figure out a way to edit it in after or something.
Yeah, that's true. We could probably do that. Because we're still newbies since you're our very first guest.
I'm so honored. I did not know that until today.
Isn't that cool? Well,
Yes.
we had originally we were gonna start last weekend. Was it last weekend, Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we had something come up. And so we were like, okay, well, with all the retrogrades happening, we're just going to go with the flow and make this shift. So then that meant that we were starting with you today as our first guest. And I was like, hey,
Yeah.
divine timing. It's a whole process, it's a whole thing. So,
Good starting point. We're
yeah.
doing good.
No, it's great. So it was, like I said, trust the process. It was perfect.
I will say too, really quickly about the Matt Rife thing, because I watched the clip, of course, and I do give you credit because as a psychic medium myself, like that's primarily what I do in the energetic world. It's just always what I've been drawn to, and I have been in environments like that, when especially when I'm not reading, and there is so much energy going on in
Oh,
those spaces.
God, yes.
People are a little inebriated,
Yeah.
people so I applaud you for tapping in at all and being able to kind of
Yeah.
focus in that energy, to his grandfather. I think there was a point where you said his grandfather was saying to get a real job, which was funny.
He
Uh,
was busting his balls. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
So
That's not why I went there. That is not what I
yeah.
intended. And it's certainly when he said, "What's your dream?" I didn't say I want to be the best psychic medium. Like it was, but
Yeah.
he was clearly very interested in that.
Yeah, he was more leaning into yeah, but I agree with Lee. Lee and I are both psychic mediums, and he leans more into the medium part than I do. I do it, but it's not my favorite. I tend to steer more into the psychic stuff. But I can honestly say that when there's reasons why we ask for people to be in a quiet, uninterrupted space, because it is a whole nother energetic level of work to have to discern different messages from other people in the same room or even in the same building. So for you to be in a room full of 250 people that have also been drinking and a little off their rocker girl, like that would be hard to pull that through the ethers and nail it the way you brought it through.
The Comedy Connection makes a killer pistachio martini, and I think I was on my second one because, like, I was not planning that. That is not where I was going with that day, but we
Yeah.
went with it. It was amazing. Like it was what I tell people is like step out, say what you want, and then step out of the way, and spirit's just going to make it happen somehow. And I am
Yeah.
not done with that man yet either.
I
Yeah.
bet you're not. He
No.
lives now, he's fairly neighborly. So
I am going to continue to poke at that bear and see where that goes.
I
I don't
love
know.
that.
I
Oh,
love it.
Yeah. What if he like calls you up and he's like, girl, I need a session with you.
no,
Like, give me a psychic reading.
when
Yeah.
he calls me. Okay, so I have well, my podcast is getting a reboot, and I'm going to have a little mini series with people who are entertainers. So
Okay.
it's my thing that I'm putting out there is that entertainers are not going to be like, it's kind of like the Johnny Carson show, right? Or I'm totally
Okay.
dating myself. But have you been on Beck's show? Because that is going to be the thing. So he is going to want to come back,
For sure.
and sit right next to
Absolutely.
me in my living room, because why not?
Because absolutely we can make it happen.
That's right.
Put it
Yeah.
into existence. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I like it.
Love
So
it.
speaking of your podcast, the name of your podcast is what is it?
Intuition Unleashed.
Intuition Unleashed. That's right. So you guys that are listening, that is where you can find Beck's podcast. I think you've got on all the normal, Spotify, Apple, all the
Yep.
things.
All
Okay.
the things. It's just I'm doing it with a different network. I'm doing it with the Transformation Network.
Okay. And then also, where else can people find like your book link? Or if they want to get a hold of you, which ways are your preferred method of them
The
reaching out?
best way is my website, which is my name, BeckBeccNelson.com.
Okay.
And all the stuff, all the links.
Right.
At the bottom of the front page is that YouTube video. all the
Okay.
ways to, there's a whole work with me button. Thank you for asking. Just no health insurance.
Just no health insurance. Don't ask that because we're not taking it
Do
anymore.
not whip out your Blue Cross card. No.
Yeah, we don't care.
Anything with that.
Lee, do you have anything else that you want to add to this or anything before we say our goodbyes? And
I don't think so. No, just thank you for coming on and sharing your time with us, and this was great.
I
yeah,
appreciate both of you. And this is really, I was saying to April, the first time that I've had a formal introduction with you, Lee.
I
yeah,
know. Yeah,
yeah.
we know a lot of mutual people, I think, but I don't think we've ever got the chance to like sit down and talk. So this has been good. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me on. Your first, I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. That's freaking exciting.
Nobody
So
can take that away.
no, not at all. Thank you so much, Beck. I always just love sitting with you. I was gonna say the last time I sat with you was, God, what was it, like 2 years ago almost now? I think it was. Yeah.
Been a while.
And we had a really fun conversation even that day. So yeah, always good times. So I think we're just gonna like say our goodbyes here. Like, thank you so much for showing up and telling us about what you do in your book and all the fun things that you have going on. I think that we'll probably like add your links and everything to the YouTube and the podcast once we have our shit together and know what we're doing with all that.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. So thank you to our listeners that we will have eventually.
We're manifesting that too.
We are
Future
celebrating our very first episode together right now, the three of us. So thank you for those that are coming and that will be listening soon. And we will be showing up with our next episodes shortly. Yeah. So all good things. All good things. Oh, you know what? One other thing I wanted to add is I kind of wanted to add like I think we'll have our email already embedded somewhere in these things, but I kind of wanted to throw it out there that, our listeners can email us also with like questions if they have questions or they have suggestions or topics that, different types of speakers that they want to see come on here. I feel like that would be really fun. And then also, Lee, if you want to put your information out there, if somebody wants to book a session with you or any time with you, maybe we could add that too.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good with that.
Okay. Yeah. So we can do that too. Okay. I think we're going to work out all these kinks at some point, but thank you guys so much. And Beck, thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thanks. Appreciate both of you.
Okay. We'll see you next time. How do I stop this? Where's my record button? I'm going to have to edit all this out. Sorry. Oh, there it is.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Okay. I'm probably
Thank you for joining us on Own Your Essence. We're so grateful to our guests for sharing their wisdom and to you, our listeners, for being part of this journey towards healing and empowerment. If today's conversation resonated with you, we'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share this space with others who might need it. If you have any questions, topic ideas, want to be a guest, or would like to work with myself or April privately, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you next episode.